Welcome to week 2 of the Nature Study series, Apple Blossoms. This is an apple tree in my front yard, and today it will help us tackle the problem of when you cannot or should not pick your subject matter away from its natural environment to draw it. In this case, I don't want to pick the flowers because those will not have the opportunity to become apples. So we will instead use photographic reference. There can be a multitude of other reasons why even something that's growing in your own yard should not be picked in order to be studied. Removing a plant or part of a plant from its natural habitat can damage it, could damage nearby plants, could damage the yard depending on how aggressive you are, or could disturb the visual beauty of the plant you've chosen to study. If you are sourcing plants outside of your home, such as a local park or a nature preserve, removing the plants may be forbidden by the park rangers or the staffing of that environment. Whatever the reason may be, photography is a wonderful tool to help us on our nature journaling journey. Our first steps are to decide what elements will be included in our drawing. These top 3 white flowers, these 4 pink buds on the right, and these 3 leaves at the bottom. I start plotting my shapes by drawing the center of my flower in the front and creating a rough perimeter. The flower on the left, as views from the side, is a cup shape, and I'm just putting in the very rough placement of the 3 petals from the flower in the back. Apple blossoms are a 5-petal flower. Apple trees Malus domestica are a member of the rose family, or Rosacea, one of the most widely cultivated tree fruits in the world. Other fruiting members of this family include pears, strawberries, peaches, apricots, plums, and cherries. Now this next bit where I add the leaves and the small pink buds, you will notice are all kind of not where they're supposed to be. I've drawn all the leaves too small and too high up, and it's squishing the little buds far too high up on the flower. So I will inevitably end up erasing almost everything here and redrawing it, I think twice through the course of this recording. And I want you to remember that that is exactly why we draw in pencil. And having to erase a shape, or group of shapes, or even an entire sketch is not a sign that you have failed. Gauging the accurate dimension, size, and placement of things like petals and leaves, especially when we have multiple shapes that we are grouping together, can be tricky, and it takes time and patience. At the center of the flower, we have 5 little green sort of semi-leaves. This is part of the calyx, which protects the petals before they unfurl and is where they attach to the plant. There are 1 for each petal, and out of the center of this come the stamen of the flower. I usually prefer to draw the anther, which is the sort of roundish shape at the end of the stamen, and then after I have those placed, I will draw the filament, which is the stem of the stamen, back in towards the center of the petal. The edges of my leaves need to have a soft, somewhat subtle sawtooth edge. They're not smooth. And in some cases, I will erase the edge of my leaf, but in others, I can just sort of add a little bit of texture to the edge of that leaf without actually having to erase it. The final sketching step we're going to do here is go back over our lines for our petals and just adjust our shapes to be a little more exact. This week, I'm going to take you through the process of watercoloring these flowers. I am mixing a very, very pale gray. It doesn't really do us any good to use pure white paint on our watercolor paper, but we can use white really effectively to mute out other colors. So adding a little bit of gray here is going to give our petals more dimension. I promise you at the end they will still look white with that bare touch of pink that they have in our reference picture. I am also going to be painting these petals one at a time, kind of alternating so that one petal isn't wet while the petal next to it is wet. And this step right here is why. I'm going to be dropping just a little bit of pink into my gray-white base and spreading it around and letting it sort of diffuse through that wet petal. I don't want pink from one petal to leach onto the pink of another because that will kind of make them muddy, and we want our petals to be very distinct entities. With this petal, I'm going to show you how to fix a mistake. Here, I've put too much gray in, and by dabbing straight down and lifting straight up with the paper towel, I can remove that paint while it's still wet. This is a very useful tip when you are first starting watercolor to know that you aren't committed once the paint is to the paper. If it's still wet, you have time to fix it. This little green leaf, I'm going to show you another way to remove color where we have unwanted color or too much pigment. As I was going through and painting these leaves, I was looking back at that little one and I just kept thinking it's too dark. It needs to be so much lighter than the others. And so while I am going to use a darker green later on to fill out most of the colors on these two bigger leaves, I know I still need to go back in and remove some from this little one. So what I'm going to do is clean my brush in some water, wipe it on a paper towel to make it dry, and then I'm going to run that dry brush through my green paint on that first little leaf, and you're going to see it pull up just a little bit of pigment. It makes the leaf lighter and makes the color more true, and is again an easy way to fix a place where you've got just a little too much paint. to show you now how well white pastels and mutes down bright colors. Here I have some yellow. We're going to use it to paint the pestils in our flower, and look how adding white to this makes it soft and buttery, taking it down from that kind of lemon tone, making it that soft yellow that we want for the center of our flowers. And here are our finished apple blossoms. Fun fact, apple seeds contain amygdalin, which when broken down by the body, creates cyanide gas. See you soon!